This is the Vision 79 podcast, where my friend Sander and myself, Mason, discuss recent developments in our business and personal growth. The name Vision 79 comes from our respective racing numbers. Sander's is 40, mine is 39, and we have a shared vision for success in business and personal life. Many successful people started small, just like us, but very few of them documented their process. We intend to be the first to document our journey from start to finish. We like to open each episode with a little bit of an update about what we've been doing in regards to business that week, so that in the future we can look back and get an estimate of where we were in our lives at this point. And this week it was a little bit of a slower week. We had a lot of stuff outside of the business going on, but we did a lot of research into system security sites. A lot of those are call to consult and live demos. So I have to schedule like Zoom meetings where they'll talk me through whatever. And some of the ones that were recommended the other day by a friend, I don't even know if they do demos. Like, I don't know anything about them. They're like, just call me. We did some more event planning. That document I'm starting to add resources to. So like, what do we need to buy to get these events running? Who do we need to train? Stuff like that. And we got a letter in the mail about our first business for sales and use tax report.
Oh, yep.
I have to look into that this weekend. I still don't know what that is.
I think it's ACH related, I'm pretty sure, because we never paid that. So we could deal with that tomorrow, or actually we could even deal with it tonight.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, so I've got to look into it first.
Yeah. I'll be working tonight with you.
Yeah.
I assume. So
yeah, probably. Yeah. That's the business stuff that I can think of.
Yeah.
Nothing else?
I got a lot of podcast work past 2 weeks, catching up, uploading, some issues with uploading. Issues with the new computer I bought, so I had to get another one and return the old one. And I spent a bunch of time this week catching up on like 2.5 months worth of invoices for 335, 530, Miata, and Porsche. Yep. There was a ton of stuff to do there that I hadn't caught up on at all. But now I am fully caught up outside of printing them and putting them in the binder. So that feels really good. And I'm waiting on some car parts for the 530. It has an exhaust leak at the downpipe from the header, it's pretty bad. Like, it's significant. And the previous owner told me that there was only one bolt there because one of the studs snapped. So I think I'm going to drill that stud out and then just put a through bolt in it.
Got it.
Bolt and nut. I don't know if I'll put a stud back in there. Depends if I can get a stud easily. But I was going to see if I could tinker with that maybe tomorrow morning, or I don't know, something like that.
Cool.
So that's cool. That's what I got.
Yeah. In life outside of business, my car problems have almost gone away. It's starting without any issue, and the clutch vibration is gone. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just fucking cantankerous. Like, it depends on the day. And I have decided to buy a gun pending recent events in which people that we know were put into a position of not the utmost amount of safety. So I've decided to buy a gun. Put a pin in that, because I've also found a new food logging app that I installed. These are related. The food logging app is called Macro Factor. There's a YouTube gym influencer guy that I watch called Jeff Nippard. And he's an all-natural bodybuilder, and he does a scientific, analytical approach to like everything. Like, what's the best form? What should the best workouts? Why are they the best? Etc. And he has his own app which tracks and logs all of your food and nutrients. And I think it uses AI to learn your body and your system and then recommend you updates based on your goals.
Interesting.
It's super similar to MyFitnessPal, but instead of $35 a month, it's $5 a month.
Oh.
And it comes with the barcode scanner. The UI is so much more friendly and so much easier to use.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's configurable. So in MyFitnessPal, if for example, you were like, I don't like the way they list the food out because all of the letters are like super close together, right? This allows you to space the letters out and make it a little easier to see. So it's super configurable. So the last day I was nerding out over that and like editing the app to be exactly what I wanted. And I was like, man, this is awesome because this is going to help me reach my gym goals better, right? And then I drew a parallel because I am becoming obsessive about the gym and fitness and health stuff, right? I am already obsessive about cars. And in talking to our friend who's into guns, I'm not yet into guns, but I can tell. I know what it feels like to get into cars and get obsessive over it because it's happened. I know what it feels like to get obsessive about the gym and physique because I'm getting into it. And I know that this is like something of interest that I'm about to get into and about to get like fucking super informed on and like totally lost in the hobby. And I realized, man, I think those are the top 3 like manly things that men usually get obsessed with. It's like cars, gym, and guns, right?
Yeah, cars,
Those are the
gym,
top
guns,
3.
and women.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I found that to be an interesting parallel because if you think of a gun guy, you have an image in your head, right? Gym guy, image in your head. Car guy, image in your head, right? But
Yeah.
when I like, what else is there? Like a food guy? I can't really picture what a food guy looks like. They come in all shapes and sizes, right? But like every single person who's like a car guy, a gym guy, or a gun guy, those are usually like manly men. And I was like, it's interesting that I'm naturally drawn to these items, which are inherently masculine, and other people are drawn to other activities that aren't as closely tied to that. And I thought that was interesting because a part of it and it being masculine, I think, is I want to figure out how it works and then I want to perfect it. And I don't know that's just information that I found. I have no conclusions drawn, but I thought it was interesting.
Do you think that if we went back 50 years, that there would be more people that are into those more masculine activities or hobbies?
Yeah,
I think it's a factor of society today and how kids have grown up.
Yeah, I think that the hobbies might have looked a little different. I think hunting would have been a much more prevalent hobby.
Yeah, I just thought of the worst hobby ever. I can't say it on air. I'll tell you after.
Is it?
Oh, it's so bad. I don't know how I thought of it.
Is it similar to collecting cars?
Oh no, not at all.
Do you want to write it down and show me?
If you want to pay $9.99 for a Patreon, comment and I'll tell you what my idea was.
Absolutely not.
It will not go on air for free.
Absolutely not. I will not be canceled for something like this. But I think the hobbies would have been a little different. Probably like hunting would have been a big one. I think that like gold mining would have been huge too. So like mining, like hard work type stuff as a hobby, right? So like outside of work, I'm going to go panning for gold or whatever. Would you write?
I specifically wrote it in code so that you wouldn't be able to look over and read.
All right. I'm pretty much, I think
I don't want anyone to enhance it online. See what I wrote. So.
Anyways, I think they would have been a little different. When you think of hobbies, right? The first one that comes to mind for me is cars, right? And second is gym and third is gun, which makes sense because that's the order in which I'm most familiar with them, right? But when you think of hobbies in general, like when you think of, if I tell you, what do you think are the hobbies of a 16-year-old guy today, right? I think it's probably social media influence, like TikToks and Instagram videos and stuff like that.
I would say watching them, not even like...
So some kids like to make them, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the kids that make the shitty ones, not like the nice ones.
Right.
Like, I'm going to TikTok my friend on a skateboard and then he breaks his wrist, right? Like that.
I'll take the shit I make on my personal.
Exactly. That, TV shows,
Yeah.
video games,
And porn.
is porn. So there's only one cool one in those four. That's it. But like when you think of kids like that, and then you think of what kids were like in the 80s or what we think that kids in the 80s were like, right? It was like, I don't know, titty magazines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Muscle cars, hitting the gym, smoking cigarettes, rock and roll music. And like, those are so much cooler than like the fucking TikTok videos and shit that kids these days are into. And I don't know why they're cooler.
I can't put my finger on it too, but I agree with you. Do you ever get those Instagram or TikTok reels of like, this is your feed, and it then shows you a slideshow of a bunch of images that like are supposed to be like your feed or whatever?
Yeah.
I get a lot of them that are like 80s and 70s, like racing, grid girls, mansions. Like all of those are like that. And I'm like, this is so much cooler than like what we have today.
Yeah.
It's so much cooler.
Yeah. I can't determine what leads people to have the hobbies and interests that they do to be inherently that way. I don't know if it's like the world that you grew up in or the people that you grew up with. I think you're just drawn to certain types of things. Because like I didn't grow up with any of that. I didn't grow up with cars and with gym influencers. I guess my dad was into cars, but like I got myself into cars when I was 16.
I think that for me personally, I think that the modern generation has gotten a little bit more lazy overall.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the activities that generation is drawn to are simpler, right? Like making a TikTok is super easy. If you want to make a trashy TikTok, you just throw it online.
Right.
And you film some silly thing and then just hope it gets views, or
maybe it works.
Figure out some way to get views through AI or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. It's easier. Or playing video games, you plug in a game into a computer and you hit 6 buttons. And if you hit those 6 buttons well, then you'll play well.
Win. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Versus like, working on cars takes years and years of skills. Or making money takes years and years of skills. Or like, smoking cigarettes takes a disregard for your health. So like, there are things that I think today that kids are into that are a lot easier than the more challenging hobbies, I guess.
I think another reason that I don't connect with things these days versus those things, like let's take nudie magazines, muscle cars, and rock and roll. Let's take those 3, right? And let's pit them against Drake's music, like pop, whatever, right?
Sure.
Instead of cars, let's do TikTok videos, like social media, video games. Let's do video games. And then instead of nudie magazines, let's do porn, right? I think that these are way better because they bring you into life and they ground you, whereas the others don't.
The new ones don't.
The new ones don't. Going one by one, we're going to do the nudie magazines versus porn, right? A nude magazine, you're holding a magazine in which there was a photo shoot in which a team of people took a photo of this girl and she's on a beach and whatever. You're holding it in your hands, it's material, and your imagination runs, right? With porn, everything's filmed. It looks fake, right? Or it looks real, but like there's no room for imagination, right? He's got both hands in her asshole. Like that, it's all there. There's nothing left to the imagination, right? Cars versus video games, right? For cars, your hands are on a machine and then you turn the machine on and you feel the car rumble around you and you feel it when it drives past. And like, it's an activity that you get in and move with, right?
Right.
And with video games, you're complacent sitting. The only sensory inputs is visual and audio, but you get kinesthetic sense from the car too. And additionally, with the car, once it's done, like once you've built it, you can race it, you can take it to your friend's house, you can drive it around. There's a sense of accomplishment every time you get in the car. But with video games, if you win one round and die the next, you forget the last round, right? So there's not a continual sense of accomplishment. And then finally, for music, I don't think people feel pop the way that you feel rock. Because rock, especially in the 80s, which is where we're listening to it, right?
Yeah.
The best you had was like, I don't know, cassettes or record players. Like really what you listened to was live music, right? Yeah. And you feel live music different than others. Like a guitar played through an amplifier is so different than a subwoofer playing like bass, like whatever kind of rap, right?
Yeah.
It's a different feeling. One's visceral. One's someone's taking their hands and playing something. And the other was someone just pressing buttons and making digitized sounds happen.
Yeah.
So I think that the reason I like the older stuff is that it's more grounded in real life.
That's a fair point. Yeah. I like that.
This is a connection, an all original thought made live on air.
All original.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I think I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I like things that are tangible,
Yeah.
And I think that goes along with your point too.
Yeah. And I think that that's exactly what it is. It's do you prefer tangibility or do you not care? Because I think a lot of kids these days don't care. Tangibility doesn't resonate with them because they grew up with shit on screens.
Yeah. I think that's why a lot of kids these days fall into like, I used to kind of be one of these kids. Like I'd play like Forza and I'd be like, oh man, I got to do 12 of these types of races to get 120K in this game to buy this rare Mazda, whatever. Right. And I'd do that, and then I'd get the Mazda, and like I'd talk about the car to my friends at the time like it was my car. I'd be like, "Oh, like I got this car, and like I'm doing this and doing this," and it feels real. Right? And so it's easy to be lazy instead of going out there into the real world and finding a way to actually get that and acquire it.
My coworker collects Hot Wheels and like 18th scale models and stuff.
I mean, that's part of the reason I was into Hot Wheels too.
Right.
Was because it's so easy to buy a 99-cent version of, you know, a DPI race car than it is to like go and
build
get
a business,
a DPI race car.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why I love the Hot Wheels. And I think as I've been growing and maturing, I kind of fell out of the Hot Wheels and kind of stopped buying them, and then ended up selling most of my collection besides just a few, because like I didn't value the untangibility of it. Like it didn't feel real anymore. Like before it felt real. Like I'd look at them and look in the interiors and I was like, oh cool, like these are so awesome. Versus now I look at them and I was like, it's just a model.
Yep.
Like I shouldn't be wasting my time and energy on this. I should be spending my time and energy towards figuring out resources to get this in real life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, that's a maturity arc that I've gone through.
Yeah.
That I, you know, everyone has their own path, but I think it's valuable.
My coworker is stuck back there. When I mentioned the Gordon Murray T50S the other day, and he was like, oh, I have that one. And I was like, what? And he was like, I have that one. It's purple. And I was like, okay. And my coworker, another coworker was like, what? And then I was like, he means the Hot Wheels. And he was like, no, it's not Hot Wheels. It's real. And the kid was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, yeah. And he's like, well, it's an 18th scale, but it's mine. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, how deluded are you to, like, I mean, I guess that's just like the epitome of giving up on your dreams. But like the new, I've never liked Bugattis, but with the Tourbillon coming out the other day, the longer I look at it, the more I'm like, I would actually like to own one of those cars. I don't feel that way about the Chiron, the Cento DSG, the Lavator Noir, which I used to really love. I've fallen out of it with. I don't like the 300 mile an hour edition. I don't like the Veyron, the E90.
Devo 300.
No.
Was it a Devo that was the 300? They did the super like light version.
I thought
it was a Devo.
The Devo was a super light version, but that wasn't the top speed version.
I thought they made a top speed version of that car, and that was their like super limited run.
I don't think it was the Devo. I think it was the Chiron chassis still. But the Devo is the lightweight, like racing looking one that you're thinking of. But none of those resonate with me. But the longer I look at the Tourbillon, the longer I'm like coming around to it. And that's usually motivating because that's a fucking, I don't know, they're making 250 of them. It's probably going to be like a $5 million car, right? And like that's not going to walk into your life. No one's going to rock up to you and ask if you want a fucking $5 billion Bugatti. Right. You've got to go out and get it. And I don't mean an 18th scale or a Hot Wheels car like my coworker would like to do. So yeah, that's what I have to open the show. A lot of my quotes follow a single theme today.
Mine are all from one source, but different themes.
Let me guess.
What?
Is it Alex Ramosi?
No.
No. Okay. Well, let's start with yours because mine are kind of all over the place.
Okay.
Or no, they're not all over the place. They all follow one theme. So let's start with your all over the place ones, and then I'll bring it into a theme.
Toggle it in.
Yeah.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki.
Okay.
That's my theme for today. So I had a question for you. In Rich Dad, Poor Dad, they talk about school and financial education and the importance of it. If you haven't read the book, you should. It's great. I was curious on your thoughts regarding why school doesn't teach us about money. Is there any motive or reason behind that? Or do you think it's just a factor of society changing? What is the core reason for why school doesn't teach us about money? Because it feels like a valuable skill, right? Like you go out into the world and like I can do, coming out of high school, let's say, you can do basic algebra and more advanced algebra and some geometry and stuff like that. And, some basic history facts and, some pretty primitive science things regarding like water cycle and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But then you get out to a job and you're like, what's a W-2? What's a 401k?
Yeah.
What are taxes? How do I file them? When are they due? How do I get tax breaks? How do I start a business? Like none of that is taught or ever talked about at all.
Yeah.
And I even took an entrepreneurship class in high school and it still didn't talk about it. And I was like, this is like, thinking back now, I'm like, they should be teaching these basic things.
Yeah.
Like genuinely. And so I'm really curious as to your opinion about why it's not taught.
I don't know why it's not taught. I think that one of the reasons is, let's take a W-2 form, for example, how to file your taxes. Let's take that. You're not going to teach a second grader how to do that. You're not going to teach a third grader. I think the earliest you would teach a kid to do that, to do their taxes, is probably in the last year of high school, right? And I think that in your last year of high school, the school is so focused on getting their kids into college that they don't care about whether or not they balance the taxes, because they want them to get into a good college. Because the graduate, I don't know, I think this is accurate, but principals of high schools are paid six figures, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the teachers make like fucking $40K, and the principals get, like, no kidding, $250,000, $300,000 paychecks, right? They get
the school I went to. It was a public school in a very wealthy county, and I lived in a very small apartment with my mom, Baba, and a cat. But at that school, the starting salary for a teacher year one with a college education was around $80K.
Holy shit!
Yes,
Massachusetts, baby.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the cap for a teacher after like 20 years, I think, was like 150, 160.
That's insane.
Because my dad actually applied to get a job there teaching photography, and so I got to look at like the sliding scale chart that they had. And it was pretty staggering. I mean, it kind of makes sense because the living expenses are atrocious.
Yeah.
You know, like for some place like this up there, fucking $4,000, $5,000 a month at least.
Yeah.
That'd be like in a shitty outside part of Brookline where I live.
Right.
And there's no real shitty part of Brookline, but yeah.
Let me tell you what the real world looks like. All right. Teachers make no more than $60K a year, like at max. That's what you cap out at, right? And principals are paid like $200K, right? So there's a huge divide, right? And one of the reasons that principals are paid so much is because they get bonuses for the number of kids that get like a 5 on an AP exam or 4 on an AP exam, and like who goes to what college and whatever, right? Like the success rate of your students. And additionally, your career is in being a principal and producing these successful kids. And they don't deem success as whether or not you can pay your taxes. They deem success as in, can you get high grades and can you graduate and go to college? And is a college more likely to take a student who knows how to balance a checkbook? Probably not, because they don't care. They're there to teach you academics. So I think the reason they don't teach you that in school is because school isn't really about preparing you for life. School is about getting you to win the game so that they win. It's a business.
Yeah. So I guess my question is why isn't the education system structured in such a way that rewards people with financial education? Like, why isn't there an AP exam for basic financial education?
I think that an easy answer would be that like the elite don't want everyone to know how. But
yeah,
I think that
that's kind of a cop-out answer though, because it's really broad and you can't put a finger on it.
Right.
You know.
Did I hear water?
The AC.
Okay, got it.
So I want to make a towel under it. It's okay. This is a really high-class establishment that we are in.
Well, the toilets had problems in the past too, so I want to make sure
the toilet will break next week.
Well, I thought it was happening right now. Anyways,
I would just let it flood at this point. I'd take the insurance money for having it flood my house.
Yeah.
Fine.
I don't know. I don't have a good reason for why it isn't built that way. I think it was probably set up initially to be a method for like, imagine this. Let me backtrack. I'll shut up. It's the 1970s. You live in West Virginia in a coal mining town, right? The only way out is if you can get good at book smarts to go to a college where you can become a lawyer, right? That's the only way that you know out, right? Forget a checkbook. Forget balancing your taxes or balancing a checkbook and filing your taxes. Forget that shit. You need to learn as much as you can about school and about education and about academics and lawyering to get a better job to get out. And that, I think, was so important to them that as everything grew and society grew around it, it was just still tunnel visioned on go to school, get a job, figure the rest out later. And it's totally disregarding the fact that you need to figure out how to do taxes. But additionally, think about it this way. If you don't do your taxes correctly, the government profits on you because they'll send you a bill bigger than what you get. So if the government is running the education system and don't teach you how to do taxes, and then you start making money and then you owe them taxes, then they can make more money on you. That could be a bigger picture reason. Dude, what's your thoughts?
I think that I really like your point about the coal mine. I think that a lot of the education we get today is stuck in old ways of you grew up in a super small town with no opportunity, and your only opportunity out is to get X degree to get X job.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that it's stayed that way, since then. And there's been no real change because kids continue to go to college and continue to pay for it. despite the, cost increases and stuff like that. So it's like, why change it? You know what I mean? And I think that also a lot of the people that are convincing kids to go are their parents who grew up in that atmosphere and saw the reward from that atmosphere. So why wouldn't they convince their kids to go and get this education to become a lawyer or a doctor or something like that, where you don't really need to understand a financial background. Right. So I think that, to cater to the audience, because it is the kid that's going to college, but I think fundamentally it's the parents that are sending the kid to go to college.
Yeah, and the schools that are encouraging them to.
Right.
Yeah.
At least encouraging. And so I think in that sense, why would the schools change if that's the fundamental audience?
Yeah. What's interesting is that we're going to get political here.
Oh boy.
People are changing the education system. People do want to change what kids learn, but instead of changing it to teach them how to balance a checkbook or file their taxes, they're changing it to teach them about sex way earlier in life.
Yeah.
They want to teach like third graders about sex. And like, why teach third graders about sex when you should be teaching 18-year-olds about what debt is and the fact that...
I got a sex education in 5th grade.
Me too. But they want to bring it into 3rd grade, whatever.
There are children's books now.
Way younger.
Like children's.
You can like 4-year-old call them children's books, but they're gross. They're disgusting.
Oh yeah.
Have you read some of them?
Yes.
Dude, they're...
Have you seen the video of the guy reading it
in Congress?
Yep.
It's disgusting. The fact that people can listen to that and be okay with it are fucking astounding.
I don't think most people are okay with it, but I think that those people just go along with the flow and they don't speak up, or they try to convince themselves that it's okay because this is the new progressive way.
That's ridiculous.
At least that's my take on it. Like I personally can't imagine anyone who would read that and go, "Yeah, I want to get that to the kid."
Yeah, but I'll tell you this: the people who want to have those books read to their kids are not the people who are questioning why the education system doesn't teach kids to file the taxes. They're not those people. They're the people who followed it and got their regular job and are in a dead-end job, don't know why, and are just looking for something else to do.
Looking for another place to put their energy.
Yep. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And that's I can't resonate with it. I don't understand it, but it's just not who I am.
Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah. Do you want to do another one of yours before we get into mine?
Sure.
Okay.
So I got another Rich Dad Poor one. Rich Dad Poor Dad one. It's easier to change yourself than everyone else. And my question is, what's one time where you changed yourself rather than changing the other people around you? And how was that experience?
I am a believer in I believe in this quote, but in the opposite execution, which is instead of, you can't change other people, you can change yourself. But most times I don't want to change myself. I like who I am. I'm going to change the people who I'm around. So a great example of that is if you're hanging out with people who you're starting to grow out of, instead of changing yourself to become more like that person, leave. So like in a relationship, I dated the same girl for like 7 years through my formative years in high school and college. And at the end of it, you're changing every day in that age range. You're never the same. And it would be shocking if after all of that, you are still compatible as you're growing into the person who you're going to become.
Yeah.
And we weren't. And I had the option of changing who I was, because I'm not going to change the person who I'm around, or changing the people who I'm around. And that's ultimately what I went for. And I think that's the best decision 9 times out of 10. The only reason you should change yourself is if you're like a fucking serial killer or depressed or unhappy or doing something wrong, right? But if you're happy and content with who you are, I wouldn't try changing yourself for other people.
Not for other people, but I think there is value to changing yourself if you are in a state right now where you are satisfied with mediocrity, right? Like if you're in at least that's my personal opinion. I mean, but at the same time, everyone's, I'll explain a little bit. Everyone's got their own path and got their own things that, float their boat and stuff like that. But I'd argue if you're content with stressing about money sometimes because of your 9 to 5, but then going to the bar to relieve your stress, or hanging out with people who have no dreams or aspirations, I'd say maybe it would be worthwhile to put a little bit of effort to change yourself.
The problem with that statement is that you started it with, if you're content. Because if you're content, you're not going to change. But if you're unhappy,
yeah, I know, but I think those people could have better lives if they did push through.
maybe. But if they're content with it, then there's no catalyst to.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that if you're unhappy with the state that you're in, or the people that are around you, or the way that you feel about something, that's when you need to consider changing yourself or the people around you.
Right.
Changing yourself as in, like, are you eating clean? Are you sleeping enough? Are you doing the work that you need to be doing? Or do you want to change the work that you're doing? Do you want to set different goals? Like those types of things. Right? But I'm a firm believer in never changing your values for other people. But I think that that's a different point. That's a different application of the same words, right? I think you mean to say changing your goals because you are on a different path than other people, right? So like you don't have to be another sheep, right?
Yeah.
That's the point of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people could live better lives, but choose not to because it's easier. And who am I to tell them otherwise? Right? Like, it's a shame. It's a shame because you look at them and you know that there's better things out there for them.
Right.
But ultimately, if they're happy with where they are, like one of my exes, her family was a family of teachers, right? And every time I went over there, the house was a fucking wreck. It was so messy. And I thought to myself, how do these people live this way? How do these people not apply for better paying jobs? How do they not start a side business? How do they not clean their fucking house, right? And the answer was that they were comfortable with it. They didn't mind. And, I'm not looking to change other people, right? So instead, I'll just leave the house and I'll go somewhere else. And I'll surround myself with other people and other families that do the type of things that I want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the only example I have where I've changed myself is when I've realized that I don't want to be a traditional 9-to-5 employee, and I don't want to have a lazy mindset when it comes to money. I want to change that for things. And that was when I was pretty young. And I think other than that, it's been growth, just growing on that vision and pursuing it, to the best of my ability at the time. So,
but that stems from discomfort, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're content and happy with your position, even if it, on paper might be mediocre, then, there is no catalyst.
Yeah. Well, and to other people, what we're doing is mediocre. Like it's
because we're not hanging out with friends. We're not relaxing. We're not going to bars and clubs and, Six Flags to ride rides.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Or even past that, like I'm sure that there are some people out there who don't deem our path as the best way to seek success. There are some people out there who would say that, oh, you should be, investing in real estate, or you should be in REITs, or you should be going to these like business meetings, or sitting in city council meetings, or you should be trying for this position or that position. Like, sure, there are so many different ways to seek success. And I don't think that any are better than others. It's dependent on the person, right? So we're following the path that we believe is best. But even then that changes. Like in listening to your Rich Dad, Poor Dad quotes, I'm realizing that in the last year, I went from not knowing what a 401k was to recognizing it and calling it out for being the bullshit that it is, to paying a financial advisor to make sure that was correct, to committing to it, right? Yeah. And like my perspective on everything shifts so rapidly because we're so new to all of this.
It is crazy to think about where we were a year back from today. Like it is wild. Like we hadn't, at this time last year, we were just getting into dropshipping. Yeah. Like that's where we were. Yeah. Which is wild.
Yeah. And it's crazy because at that time we were like, dude, this is our ticket out. Yeah. Like we're going to start this dropshipping site and then we're going to make whatever 10% on every sale. And then it's going to be fully automated and awesome. Right. And this is the way to go. Yeah. And then 2 weeks later we were like, we should start this other thing. And like, this is the way to go. And then 2 weeks later we read a new thing and we were like, dude, forget all this. We're going to borrow a ton of money from the bank. And we're going to get like head over heels in debt. We're going to get into $5 million in debt. Yeah. We're going to pay it off at the right rate. And then we found the next thing. Like we're still learning everything. And every time we get a new nugget of information, it just goes into the arsenal, right? Mm. And we get more informed and can make more.
I think it's important to note, though, that we do, I think overall we pursue activities with focus. Yeah. I don't think we get into an activity and then get to the informed pessimism section from Alex Hormozy and then just restart from the uninformed optimism, part. For viewers who don't know that staging, Alex Hormozi has this bit essentially about the progression of starting a business, and it starts with uninformed optimism, and then it's uninformed pessimism, right? And then it's informed pessimism, and then informed optimism, I think.
I don't remember.
It's something like that. Yeah.
Informed pessimism is where people quit.
Right.
And I think that for the drop shipping and the Kahuna Baked Goods business, I don't think it was informed pessimism, and I don't think that we quit. I think that we got to that stage at the same point as we're learning about business as a whole, and then we attribute what we've learned about business as a whole to those businesses and said, I think that there's a better way to go about doing this. I think that we should, start this other thing that has more promise, stick to it, take that to the limit, and then circle back because these have promise. But it takes a little bit more experience to get those to the place that they need to be, right?
Sure.
So for drop shipping, like our goals are so enormous that I don't think that drop shipping is my ticket out, right? And the only reason I'm thinking that is because I have learned new information about business, not about drop shipping. I think a lot of people hit the point in the drop shipping course where it's like, here's how you build your Spotify store. And after 3 videos, they're like, oh, this is harder than I thought it was. Now I'm informed and I'm pessimistic and I'm going to quit. I think that we were informed realism, which is I can do this. I can stick with it. I know what success looks like in this field, and I want something different. I want something bigger. And the only way to know that you want something bigger than this is to give it a try first, get halfway through it, and then decide if that's what you want to stick with or not.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's my perspective. Yeah.
Why don't you hit me with one of your quotes?
My first one is a Hormozi quote from one of his new videos. It's smart, busy, broke. You can't have all 3. You've got to pick 2. So the application is, if you're smart and busy, then you're not broke. You're making money. If you're busy and broke, then you're not very smart. You're spending your time doing shit that you shouldn't be doing. And if you're smart and broke, you're not busy. You're lazy. You're capable, but you're not doing anything. And I thought that was a really interesting combination because every single one of these combinations I can attribute to different people that I know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you can also be on the path to smart and smart and busy, I guess, right? That's the one that's like, you're doing well if you're smart and busy.
Smart and busy, and you're not broke. Yeah.
But I think you can be on your way to smart and busy, but you can be like broke and busy getting there, right? Because you can work on a business and be broke.
Let's for sake of our dialect, let's change broke with poor.
Yeah.
You're not poor, right? You can be broke and have no money, but from Rich Dad Poor Dad's perspective, you're poor if you spend your money poorly and don't spend your time correctly, right?
Right.
So in this case, switching that out with poor, yeah. So I would argue that we are undeniably busy, right? And we are actively seeking to become smarter, and therefore we're not broke, we're not poor, right? We're on our way to making that money, even if we haven't already. And I mean, honestly, honestly, looking at that, like the average income for our area is like 60K a year, and we're above that. So even though we're not rich, like we're not where we want to be, we're still not bottom of the barrel, right? We're moving in the right direction. But I like that. And that's a really, really easy way when someone is like, I don't understand why I'm not seeing the success that I am. Fucking, let's take Ryan. I'll call him out on camera. Ryan, let's see which one he is, right? He's definitely not busy. He ain't doing shit, right?
But he thinks he's busy.
He's not. So let's see. The only one that doesn't include busy is smart and broke, right? So he's broke in that he is not on the course to be making more money. He's not busy, which we've already determined. So that only leaves smart, right? And I would argue that Ryan's a smart guy.
Oh, yeah.
He just doesn't apply himself, right? There you go. Do I pick someone else to do it with? Should I just start naming names? Busy and broke, but you aren't smart. Who's someone that works really hard and doesn't make any fucking money for it? I don't think I know anyone.
People that give shit out for free all the time. and don't know how to monetize it?
I'm sure there's someone working, Dutchy, right? Dutchy, great guy, love him to death, right? Super busy. He works his ass off, right? He doesn't make a ton of money, meaning that he's not applying his work the proper way, right? And then the final one, smart and busy, our buddy Craig, right? He works hard. He's a smart guy, and he ain't broke.
Yeah.
Real world application. I like that. So then when someone comes to us, right? Like when Justin comes to me and he's like, hey man, I'm not making the money that I need to pay my student loan bills. What can I do? I'll go, okay, well, let's see. You aren't, which is the one without, you want to be the opposite of broke, right? So you're not smart or you're not busy. One of those two things, right?
Yeah.
And I know you're a smart guy. You're just not busy. Get to work.
Right.
I like that. So like whoever comes to us and we're like, I don't know what to do, man. Like the answer is probably more or get smarter, right? That's my first.
I dig it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Why don't you do another one?
No,
I only got one more.
Let's do. Okay, then I'll do mine. You can probably attribute yours to it, and then we'll go from there.
Sure.
I have. Okay, actually, these are the only two. You know what? Let's do yours, and then we'll do my two that are on the same theme. We'll have a discussion about it, and then we'll wrap it up with my final one. How about that?
Okay. You are rich dad, poor dad. You are one skill away from great wealth. What do you think that skill is for you? Or if you think you've attained that skill now, what do you think it was in the past?
Probably sucking dick. I think that would make me a lot of money.
It probably would.
Okay.
You ever think about like,
Jesus Christ. Here we go.
You ever think about like, dude, like I could give a mean blowjob if I was gay?
I don't think that.
I've thought about that once.
I think a lot of guys think about that.
Again. Yeah.
I think a lot of guys think that. I think that
because like when you're getting a blowjob, you're like, this ain't that fucking hard. Like I could do this shit, but I can't fucking like do it. But like I could do it way better.
I think you've probably had only bad blowjobs.
No, I've had some decent ones.
I think that a primo blowjob, at least I've thought to myself, I could never do this.
Yeah,
Okay.
I haven't had a primo blowjob.
Here's the thing. On its face, it's kind of like Hormozy says, you don't have to be deserving of success if you just do the steps it takes regardless, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you just take the actions, the operationalized actions to be successful, you will be successful whether you're deserving of it or not, right? If you do the motions of a good blowjob, it'll probably be a good blowjob. You could probably be capable of it, right? Like anatomically, you're capable of it, right? Mm-hmm. But spiritually, I think part of a blowjob is the gusto, like the wanting it, right? And I don't have that, so I think I'm incapable of giving a good blowjob.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think if someone put a gun to my head, though, I could give a pretty good blowjob.
I know I'm buying a gun, but I'm not going to put it to your head. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, back to the skill thing. What skill do I have that I'm missing?
Yeah, so you are one skill away from great wealth. And what do you think that skill is for you?
I don't think I'm lacking a skill. I think I'm lacking just time and experience. Like, I think the only thing between me and great wealth, because the most important skill to have is adaptability, right? Mm-hmm. Like willingness to learn. I have motivation, which isn't a skill. I have discipline, which I don't think is really a skill either. But this
can be. Discipline can be a skill.
Yeah.
Like you
I guess you can
make yourself disciplined.
Yeah.
And learn how to be disciplined.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then in that case, I'll say discipline isn't as important as this skill, which is adaptability, coachability, right?
Yeah.
I think that is what blocks a lot of people from seeing the success that they want to, because they can't take constructive criticism. They refuse to learn lessons. They have an ego in the way, right? But I love to learn, and I don't mind being wrong. So if that's the case, if I learn from every single activity that I do, I just have to keep doing activities until I learn enough to be, have huge wealth. Yeah. So I think it's just time and experience.
I would agree with that. I think for me, it's also time and experience, but I think that one skill that would help me get there would be cold call sales. I think if I was really good at that, it would bleed into other aspects of how I approach entrepreneurship. And I think it could really benefit me long-term, going through the entrepreneurship journey.
Yeah.
So I think that that's one skill that I should focus on acquiring as I continue forward.
Yeah. There are skills that I don't have that I will pursue and will want to have. And there are skills out there that I don't even know exist that I'll need.
Sure.
And I will have to develop. But there's, I mean, it's kind of like asking someone like, what are you lacking? Right? Because if I were lacking something, I would be pursuing it right now. And if I were pursuing it, then I would only be lacking in a portion of the full amount.
Right.
Cold calls is an interesting one because it's like script writing. You know, like you write a script and then that's what you open with on the phone. But generally speaking, I think that cold call sales for personable people aren't super difficult. I think it's kind of like writing stand-up comedy. Like you watch it happen and you go, oh, that's easy. And then you start to write it and you're like, oh, this is hard. But once you have it written out, then it's easy
again. I don't know if I think that personability really ties into cold call for me personally, because I'd say I've always been pretty personable. Like I've always been easy to approach for the most part. And, you know, I can communicate relatively effectively about a variety of topics with different people. Mm-hmm. But I've consistently been bad at making people uncomfortable or asking them something of them that I'm not sure if they will be okay with. So for
what's the uncomfortable thing again?
I haven't always been comfortable asking something of someone else and not knowing if they actually want it.
Oh, well, that's an easy fix because you're looking at it from the wrong perspective. You're looking at it as, do they want this thing? And I think that what you should be looking at it as is they need this thing and I got to get it to them.
Right. That's a fair point. I just don't know. I don't think I've always had that perspective, but I've also always had personability.
Yeah. Well, then that's what I'm saying is that I don't think cold calls will be too difficult a skill for you to master because if you are personable, it's just a matter of writing the script. And that's, you know, the hardest part. But once you have it done, you can take your time writing the script and everything.
Right. Okay. I hear you now.
Yeah. No, I'm certain there are tons of skills that I haven't even had the opportunity to know that I need yet. So like a great example would be once we start running this business, I don't know anything about permitting, right? So maybe learning permits is a skill that I'll need to learn, but I don't even know that I need to learn it yet because I haven't gotten there. Firing people, right? That's a skill that I will have to become familiar with that I haven't had the opportunity to do yet, right? Would love to fire people from the Formula SAE team, but the best I could do is publicly shame them. And that's not really how firing works in the real world. So there are things out there that I'm sure that we don't even know exist yet.
I would agree with that for sure.
Cool.
So that's what I got for today. I'd love to hear what you got.
I have a longer segment here.
Okay.
It's 2 quotes and a thought. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is, it's not a direct quote from Alex Hormozi, but he talks about how business is akin to taking a sledgehammer and hammering away at a brick wall, but you don't know how thick the wall is. Mm-hmm. Some people have thicker walls than others. Some people have a harder fight in front of them. But the difficulty is that you don't know how thick the wall is. Have you ever seen that image online of like, it's like the coal miner who is like chomping away. It's like a cross section. He's chomping away. And then there's another guy who's like, you know, he's got he's like sad and he's walking away and he was this close to hitting a diamond. Yes. Like he gave up just that amount short.
I've seen those when digging a hole. Like people dig a hole, and then they give up right when they're almost to the diamond. They crawl out and dig a different hole, and they don't get as far in a different hole. I've seen that.
Yep. I think that one of the main reasons that people don't see the success that they want to is because either they pick up a sledgehammer and go, I'm not doing this, or they hammer at it for a little while and then eventually they give up. And I have likened this. There's a reason that I don't do this, and I'll liken it to this. I had an original.
You don't do what? I'm sorry.
That I don't give up hammering the wall.
Oh, got it.
But here's I probably could have explained this a little better. I should have practiced this earlier. Here's my tie-in to this, my own analogy for the brick wall. I was talking to one of my coworkers the other day. He's an older guy. He's in his 60s. He's close to retiring. And I asked him, I was like, oh, are you interested in doing this course or whatever? And he was like, I'm not interested in learning more. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, I'm happy with where my career is. It is what it is. I'll retire in a year or two. And like, I'm not interested. And I was like, then what wakes you up in the morning? And he was like, I like to teach. I like to pass on my information. I'm at the point now where I'm done learning and I'm ready to give. And I think there's a lot of respect. I have a lot of respect for that, like wanting to give back. But the thought of being done learning is death to me, right? But it's interesting because he's so content with it. Like he's so happy being there. He's cool with it. And I had this thought, which is life and business is kind of like climbing up the side of a mountain, in that there's a beautiful view at the top. You know it. There's a huge pavilion with food and drink and people you love, and there's a beautiful view out there. And there are checkpoints along the way. And as you climb the mountain, people will stop to rest at some of those checkpoints and then realize that it's pretty good there, and they'll just stay there. And it takes very few people to get back on the road and continue climbing that mountain, knowing that there's not another checkpoint for a little while. And so a lot of people stop there. And what's sad about that is that the pavilion that you stop at on the way up is the one where you die. Like, everyone's dying eventually, right? But my coworker, he made it, I don't know, a quarter of the way up the mountain, and he was like, dude, they got Chinese food here. I like Chinese food. They've got Coke Zero, and then I've got this beautiful view of the valley below me. Yeah, I can't see the mountaintops and the ocean far away from the top of the mountain, but I'm happy here, so I'll stay here. And then he stays there until he dies. And I think it's interesting because I wrote down here, some people choose to stop when the view is enough to satisfy them. Others continue, not for the view from the top of the mountain, but for their drive to accomplish the feat, which is, if you're competitive in nature and that's your goal, you stop at these Patagonias to eat, and then you continue on. And that was an interesting visualization I had of that. And I started to think, why would I not stop at those middle Patagonias? Not Patagonias, pavilions, right? Like, when I have enough money to buy a supercar, why am I not going to stop there? When I have enough money to buy a multi-million-dollar mansion, why am I not going to stop there? Because I know that I'll hit those check marks, and I know people who have hit those check marks and have stopped. Mm-hmm. Why am I not going to stop? And there was this exercise that we did for the rowing team, right? My coach was really emphasizing mental toughness in my earlier years rowing. And part of that was like doing crazy workouts in the boathouse with the doors down in the heat of the summer with no fans and loud music, because he said that's how it's going to be like when you compete. It's going to be hot as balls. You're going to hate it. It's going to be really loud, and you are going to have to be able to compete in those environments. So we did like brutal shit like that. And one of the exercises we did was we either got on the machines or in the boat. And he said, all right, you guys are going to start, and then you're not going to stop until I tell you. And we were like, okay, cool. I mean, practice is only 2 hours long, right? So like, even if we go the whole time, like it's only 2 hours, right? And you get started, and after 5 minutes, you're like, we should probably have a break pretty soon, right? And then after 10 minutes, you're like, are we going to have a break pretty soon? And then after 15 minutes, you start to think, is this going to be a 45-minute piece? And when you hit minute 40, you almost give in to a comatose state of, this is what I do now. Like, I am just going to continue, because when you don't know when you're going to stop, in rowing, you can't give up. Like, you can't stop rowing because you're in a boat with everyone else moving. And if you stop, it fucks everyone else up. And people don't stop, right? And I think that being put in the position where my coach is telling me to go until he says to stop, and I don't know when stopping is, and stopping isn't an option, I can then internalize that. And in business, I will continue to go until I reach my goals, regardless of when those goals are. And that's my point.
Yeah.
That's my model.
I think also, too, a lot of the people who stop along the way at the rest stops, are people who don't really love the game. They love the outcome that's good enough for them.
Yeah.
I think that people who really love the game, love to play it, love to figure out businesses and pursue as many things and, make them as great as they can, are the people who climb all the way to the top.
They love climbing.
Yeah. Those are the people who really make it super far.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think I have respect for both types of people, because, if you're just, let alone wanting to climb to the top, if you're just a person who wants to get out of your current situation and is making an active pursuit to do that, I have respect for you.
Yeah.
Regardless of what your end goals are or if you love the game or not.
Yeah.
You know. But I think that for us, the dreams are really big.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to require a lot of climbing and a lot of time and a
Mhm.
lot of effort. And I think that it will become easier to stop along the way as we climb.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we need to stay true to what we really want.
Yep. I think it'll be very tempting too.
Yeah.
But
Super tempting.
I think that what I'm recognizing now, like as I'm staring up at the mountain, what I'm recognizing now is that the training I've done has trained me to get to the top, and I will not stop on the way there. But yeah, that's the last thing I had.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Cool.
I've got one more thing, but I don't want to take up another block of thing. And it's not.
No.
It's not.
Let's hit it. We got 5 minutes.
We
Or
have
is it
5
long?
minutes.
We can go until like 35.
Okay.
It'll be okay.
Cool. Yeah. No. There's a quote that I had sent to my buddy a while ago. I've been going through my contacts list to update profile photos and stuff, and I found one of him from this like awesome summer that we had during college. And I sent him the picture and I texted him because I had an original quote. The reason I'm including this is because I'm trying to practice what Hormozy and Rich Dad Poor Dad preach, which is having, deeper introspective philosophical thoughts and then applying it to yourself.
Yeah.
And my thought is, did we know we were in the good old days while we were in them? Or is the act of looking back on them fondly, questioning whether we knew it or not, that makes them the good old days? That's my own quote.
Can you repeat it? I like it.
Did we know that we were in the good old days while we were in them? Or is the act of looking back on them fondly, questioning whether or not we knew, that makes them the good old days? And the reason I bring that up is because right now does not feel like the good old days. Right now feels like suck. It feels it feels like I'm fucking behind from where I want to be. I'm working my ass off and not seeing results. I'm fucking sick of waiting. I'm ready to go. Like, I'm fucking chomping at the bit, and I'm ready, and I'm angsty, and I've got blue balls, and I'm upset. Like, I'm ready to go, and I fucking can't make it work. This doesn't feel like good old days to me, but I know that once we're where we're going, we'll look back and go, "Ah, man, do you remember when we did that podcast in the fucking shitty duplex and we had no money and shit sucked?" Like, those are the good old days. I think that the act of thinking back on them makes them good old days.
I would agree with that, but at the same time, I think there's a part of me that recognizes that this is these moments are the good old days. Like, despite the stress and anxiety that various shit in my life, piles on top of me, like, I'm still able to recognize that one day I'll look back on these days and really envy the fact that I was on the floor for the baseline of what I could achieve.
Right.
And I had all the potential to go up.
Yeah.
Like, I'll envy that feeling. And so I try to take it in as much as I can, even though I'm grouchy sometimes and whatever.
I don't know what you mean.
But it never happens. But I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was worth an extra 2 minutes.
Okay.
I like it.
Cool. I didn't know that we had the time in our pocket. But
Yeah, we're good.
That's easy. I also have stuff to talk about police brutality, bias, and Zins. But if you want to stop it there, then we can stop it there.
Subscribe to our Patreon.
Do not.
Thank you very much. Have a great week and enjoy.